because I didn't charge us up fully.
So John, how much the three fryers go for?
As much as I can get.
Interesting. Sounds like an auctioneer.
Like several $100?
Last year we were setting them in at like 300 or 400, and they were going up from there. So I mean, it always fluctuates from year to year, but yeah.
I think my grandson probably had $700 in that. Then we bought all the tanks.
But all the supplies, right? Yeah. See, we have rabbits, so.
Two-minute warning.
Thank you, 2 minutes.
$7:30 p.m. Better call the special meeting to order, and it was listed in the special council meeting notice as a for limited purpose of discussing the auditor's compliance with resolution 2024-23 adopted by council on June 24, 2024, and enter a contract with the NeoGov suite of programs, contract with payroll services with McDaniel CPA, and authorize and direct the auditor to transfer certain funds in support of these actions. Mrs. Siegel.
Thank you. It sounded good. Well, this seems to have just a communication problem because everybody's wanting to do a good job. And we have lots of good people. But our problem has been communication, in my estimation. I went and talked to Terry on Wednesday, and he was very cordial to me because he has so much work to do. But he sat down and, oh gee, we talked for maybe 2.5 hours. And he explained to me his side of what was going on. And he was kind enough to show me, and I asked him if he would make up these for everybody, and he did. He's going to pass out for you all to see to what they do with payroll. There is a lot to payroll. It sounds so easy. You know, someone payroll, you just mark down 8 hours and times it by how much they make, and hey, you know, that's not so hard. But there's a lot that goes into it. And Tanner has a lot to do. And so Tanner scheduled for Renee's ladies to come in, and he didn't think to talk to Terry about when would be a good time.
No, no.
No? Well,
Go ahead.
anyway, they came in and they were in the middle of doing payroll, and it was bad timing for them at that point. And they've had trouble because they had that going on. But now Terry had Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday this week that he could devote if Renee's girls or women could come in and they could talk about it and get it all set up. There's 2 computers there and they can get it all going. And but Terry's going to come up and explain everything, and then you can explain you, okay?
All right.
I didn't study.
Sir,
And Renee wants to do a good job, and the women she has working for her are very qualified, and they want to do a really good job. So everybody's on the same track of wanting to do an exceptional job, which is what we want. Okay, Terry, take it away.
Thank you, Mrs. Seavolt and Council. Mr. President, if you don't mind, I would like to address the question that was at the special meeting announcement, whereby what compliance that I have done with Resolution 2024-64, and I have already recorded the transfer of funds. That has been accomplished. What I have before you, Council, is a packet of information coming from various departments within the city. Please don't get involved too much. I've highlighted some of the areas where you would see the concerns that we have when payroll comes in from the departments. If you see things with circles, that's an area that was not correctly calculated at the department level, okay? So we'll have to make edits, and we did make, this payroll was the previous payroll that just went out last week. So those edits take time and energy, and you have to recall, if you don't, that this is police payroll. Police payroll would have showed up at our office on Tuesday of last week. We have approximately 30-plus employees within that department. And with that comes a lot of very detailed information that we're looking for to make sure that the departments have done the calculations correctly. And as you can see, there are cases where that did not occur, okay? Payroll that comes from the fire department would normally show up on Monday of the payroll week. For the most part, I can assure you, and you'll have information further back in your packet in regards to the fire department. This department does not have too many errors. They do a very nice job. What gets to be a bit more tricky is the taxing districts of where they're working between the village of Gambier or the city of Mount Vernon. And that's talking about the local tax that would be selected. And that happens if and when the staff move between one location or another. And so that's something that we are always looking for and watching for to make sure. And these, while these little tick marks that you see on the longer section of the paper, those could just have been a half of a day, a full day, or several days. So we're always watching to see how much in Gambier time do we need to devote to make sure that we're doing the calculations for the village of Gambier while our staff is working there. As we move on through, we also have part-timers in the fire department. And those individuals are not eligible to be a member of the police and fire pension fund. Part-time workers are Social Security and Medicare workers, which is different than what we all experience. We're in OPERS, police and fire, and this group, these groups of people are the traditional, I like to think of as a traditional Social Security, Medicare type employees. As you've looked through some of these records, you will see, and you have noticed, some of these are significant in regards to how many edits that we have to make. And we do the best that we can do with two people doing this work in a matter of 3 days. On top of everything else that's going on in the office. So it is challenging. There's always an opportunity where something could cause an error. And as you're working through that, you may or may not see it the first time through, maybe even on the second time through. But it's still challenging to get a phone call, get interrupted, somebody comes in, you know, all of these things are variables that could cause any time of an error that may happen. Counsel, do you have any questions?
Yes. Okay. So, your first statement, you said that you transferred the $161,000 to McDaniel CPA, which is what?
No.
Transferred it to the My Services Received, which will pay for both NeoGov and to fund.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay. And I, as I read this, that's really what it states. I think what I would think that this meant when I voted to pass this was that McDaniel CPA was going to take over the payroll and they were going to have all of these records to process the payroll and to pay our employees. And unless I just didn't get it that night, but that's what I thought was going to happen. So that's one thing I wanted to mention. You mentioned you have 2 employees and...
Well, I and one.
Yeah, you and one other. But there are 4 positions total in the office.
There are allotted 4 positions.
And they have been
3
those
positions.
2 positions have been vacant for how long?
Well over 12 months.
It's a long time. When I get this, is this how we do our timesheets? We have paper timesheets?
Actually, that is not the timesheet. The department would have, and yes, it is paper, yeah, But in the department, there would have been a staff person, or maybe two, I'm not sure, but mostly at least one in each department that we have in the city, would take the time cards that the departments have and transfer it into this format that you have.
And then these paper documents get brought to your office. And I mean, I'm sorry, but this is 2024. We have computers, we have the internet, we have software. Employees should be able to enter their time. If they do it on a paper time card, they should be able to hand it to a departmental assistant who should be able to enter it into software, and it comes right through the little wires right to your office. I guess, so when I take a time card paper and I transfer it to this paper, there's a chance for error.
Always.
And then when I have to drive this over to your office, I could lose it, so there could be a chance. And then when it's handed to your office and somebody enters it could be another error, when it could all be solved with a computer entry and it would go right to it, which I'm hoping NeoGov would have that kind of option. I guess I'll back up to the very first thing. When I voted yes to pass this resolution, I thought that this lady here and her team were going to take over all the payroll services. Not that we were just going to send them a check and essentially them not having any access to be able to actually do the payroll. Am I missing that, folks?
No, I think that was everyone's, that we voted that McDaniels would take over payroll and that the city would install this NeoGov, or this new system, to help in the future, with the thought of taking some of this burden off of the auditor's office to give you time to get your office in order. And as I had said when we voted that night even, we have had many conversations about this, and yourself and the mayor's office presented this solution to council, because we didn't mandate anything from council. We asked for solutions, and both parties agreed to this.
Oh, we don't have any, we're not
But,
anti doing this.
well, I guess that's why we're here today, because it appears so. Like, can I ask a few questions, Mel? Are you?
Well,
Or go, you finish.
So I'm reading, our safety service director handed us this, and I'm reading a lot of words in this write-up on the date timeline, and I'm seeing no access to payroll processing features. The other employee in your office not interested in assisting. Only showed them bits and pieces of the software. Several attempts realized there were mistakes being made. Retro pay, and when I see retro pay, I think, how much money have we not paid people? I mean, are we talking 6, 7 digits over a good amount of time? That scares me, and that should scare our public as well. Not provided necessary documentation and information for all the current steps involved in the to process payroll. Highly confrontational. A staff person said they had no business coming to their office. They were that this lady's team was incompetent. I mean, I'm reading that and I'm going, that is not good communication, and that is not working together. You know, I use this, we got to be able to work together in the sandbox, right? And when I read this, and then I'm just baffled, quite frankly. I'm just a little bit baffled that this is not working.
Well, you have to see it somewhat on our side as well. We, in my office, we don't get very much communication. In fact, not quite, hardly any communication. And so, knowing whether there was a schedule going to be on for these folks, we had very little information to know what exactly we were supposed to be doing. The communication cycle between this floor and the lower floor is very, very difficult to work with. It's very, very difficult.
I'm sorry.
I'm not sure why, really.
I hear you, but I also am, I mean, I don't see this as a communication issue. I see this as a compliance issue. Some people are not working, being compliant to share necessary software, passwords, whatever, so that this company that we have sent money to can help our payroll move forward accurately and to alleviate some work on this office so that they can hire somebody but get the other work done. So he's not working 70 hours a week. That's where I see this landing.
Well, why I say it's communication is Terry's working 7 days a week, and Patty is working 6. She stays there until she gets all they get their stuff on Friday. She stays Friday and Saturday until she gets that all done, because on Monday, she gets all of the fire department. Because on Tuesday, she'll get all the police.
You're talking about payroll.
Yes,
But
only payroll.
But
But
we
what
have,
I'm trying
we
to-
have decided we were going to let this
Yeah, but
company do
let-
that. So
let me-
why is she having to do that? That's where there's a problem here.
Okay, let me finish. They have, this is what their normal routine, okay? This is what they have to get done normally. Well, there's all these mistakes they had to deal with, but when they first came was right when this was going on. Did you want them not to do the payroll that week? Did you want them just to say, here's the
No.
payroll, you've got to learn now all the different things for retirement, here's all these rules and regulations. Did you want them just to dump all that on them and they don't know any of that? That is unfair to Renee's women. It takes time to learn it, but they should learn it when they're not having to do it, which would be their off week. 1 week is when they're doing the payroll, the next week. So they should come in like right this week, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday before Friday when they
Okay.
start payroll. That
Let's
didn't
do
get
it.
set up that way. That wasn't set up that way. Now, if it gets set up this week that they could come in Tuesday and Wednesday and Thursday, he would have time, and Patty, they wouldn't be trying to do this. They would be able to be cordial and be able to give them all the information so they can run with it. And they wouldn't have to worry about it. But they can't just throw this on. It's not fair to Renee's women to expect them to be just given stuff without instructions.
Well, I agree. I don't think anybody's disagreeing with that.
Yeah, but that's what I'm saying. It wasn't a good time when they came, because it was in the middle of them doing it.
Then I think
Councilwoman.
they have to talk and figure out what.
So that's
what are
where
the-
I was
what
saying
are the best days to
communication
come and do
is
the
where,
training.
is why I
mean,
was
that-
saying.
That's elementary. That should be assumed that you're going to
But so
figure
why
out the
Patty
best
was
time.
not real nice is because she was in the middle of doing this and she's overworked and she was tired and she doesn't want to make a mistake. And I mean, they're very, to have somebody be working 6 days a week, I mean, that's a good employee. She's been here a long time.
But if we had people hired and a full staff in that
I
office,
understand,
I
but
don't
she's
think they
trying
would
to
have
get
be
this
working
done,
that
but
much.
she didn't want to make the people not get their paychecks, so she was trying to complete that.
Mrs. Seabolt, can I point something out?
What?
On July 3rd, in this sheet that you've been handed, which is a rundown from Mrs. McDaniel,
Where-
it's in your packet. It's in the folder that I handed to you.
I don't have a folder. I didn't get a folder.
It's right there.
Yeah,
Thank you
Oh,
for
it's
your
over
stuff.
here.
but that's the sheet he's talking about, right?
Oh, that's,
On July 3rd, I met with Terry and the two young women that work with Renee. At the last sentence, you'll see there, Terry said that it was a wonderful idea for my staff to show Patty, or to shadow Patty, to understand the payroll process. He gave them cards so they could enter the building this past week, so they could shadow the payroll process. This was not the second floor miscommunicating with the first floor.
I agree with that.
Yeah. They were invited into that office knowing what was going on that week. And in my opinion, and I think in Terry's opinion, that's a good time for them to see the payroll process, not to get in her way, but to see what she's doing. That doesn't mean that they have to sit there and chat about their weekend, but that's an excellent opportunity for them to see what was happening. So this was not a miscommunication. I just want to.
What do you want to say about that, Terry?
Oh, I concur with him. The meeting we had with the suggestions and the back and forth of the,
Very
who's
amicable.
going to be doing this part, who's going to be that part. Yeah, the individuals, thank you very much to allowing them to come in, because it was a very good meeting, I felt, in that regards. But overall, as Mel has talked about, we are at a point where we're going to have to grow out of this world and get into the world. You know, I got that. I mean, I really do. And so in order to facilitate, and I want to share with you again as well, I don't want my back to you, because I really would like to keep you interjected as well here, is that I don't know for sure what's the best facility. I'm saying facility, not building, but facility, of how we can bring this. Trust me, I am welcome to have you help us. I'm not, I'm not, you know, it doesn't hurt my feelings at all, because I have a lot of other things to accomplish as well. And as Janice said, folks, and this is just me, for the last 12 months, yes, I work about 70 hours a week here.
Okay,
I'm
so
tired.
far we've heard,
I'm tired, to be
I
honest.
understand it.
Yeah.
So far we've heard the problem. I want to hear the solution. Now, where are we going from this point forward so we can get a solution here, so we can move forward? So what's the solution?
Do you have a solution that you could share with us?
She has a solution. It's provided in your back.
You want me to speak?
Yes.
You want me to speak?
Oh, sure, please. Sure.
I mean,
Yes, please, ma'am.
because of what we've seen, I think the best use of my office is for us to gather all the timesheets, clean them up, get them ready to be input into the system. I don't care if we do the payroll liabilities or not. It's
Yeah.
fine with me if you guys do that part.
Sure, and that's what we
But
talked
if we
about in
can
our
speed
meeting.
up the process, and instead of it being a 5-day process to process payroll, we need to get it down into a much quicker time frame. But the resistance that we've gotten so far is, there's no way we can learn all this, and you guys just want us to do the data entry. And it doesn't make sense for my office to do the data entry. We don't want to do that. We want to try to make this a lot more effective than it is right now. It's very cumbersome the way that it's being done right now. The two.
I inherited, this whole format is
Well,
an inheritance.
There's so much, even just with an Excel spreadsheet, just changing that one step where it adds all the stuff together for you
Yes.
so that you're not having to do the manual calculations. That would be a huge time saver. But that would be my solution. We help on the front end, get the numbers right, get the payroll ready to go. We give it to you to review. You send it, you pay the payroll liabilities, you pay all of the child support and pension and all that stuff. That would be my suggestion for how we could work together. But, you know, and to do it effectively, I don't care. I can send 2 people to your office, or we can have laptops and do it from my office. But there's a lot of cleanup, and there's been a lot of time that we've spent already trying to understand the laws, because it's different for police and fire. And that's something that we don't deal with every day in our office. But we understand payroll very well, so.
Mr. Scott, if I could ask, is it was council's intention, I believe, when we voted for this, that your office wouldn't have to handle payroll at all. Now, are you saying that that's not a reasonable, that's not the best way to handle it? That's not wise? I think, we concur that, we know you have open positions. We know that you're overworked. The whole point of this was to provide temporary labor to give you time and space to transition, to hire, to move into, away from the paper. And the intention, and my understanding, was that your office would not have to handle payroll. Now, obviously, there's a transition time. You can't hand someone a piece of software they've never run before. We all understand that. But there's the sooner we could get through that transition time where you're not having to do payroll, the better off your office is going to be in the long run. And that was our expectation. Is that not feasible?
Part yes, part no. In Renee's offering, she's doing, I say, the bigger part of everything. They, correct me if I'm not right, they will get the payroll completed to the point where checks, or AKA direct deposits, need to be generated. And then from there on, the rest on the back end, if you will, for those who are in payroll and recognize that, then we would finish up the rest of it from that aspect.
That's what I see.
Ma'am, if I could-
That's what I see what Renee said. They do the basic framework. Then it comes to your office to oversee it, because you're responsible
That's right.
when, to the auditor and all that. So they might need to tweak some things, but when Renee sends it to you, it needs to be double checked, tweaked to make sure it's absolutely correct.
Right. And I really appreciate that they're stepping up on this. The issues at hand, very rough to start with, sorry about that. But we're to the point that we just need to move up and step up and take on these folks to help us finish up what we need to get done. They have a short amount of time themselves, according to your staff, that they're able to help us. And the clock's ticking. So it would be most beneficial if we could bring this together and get started on this. The sooner the better.
Now you have a new person that's going to start, right?
Got one coming the first of the month, and I just sent the letter to the second person today.
That's good
Not
news.
sure exactly when the start date will come, but somewhere, probably just a bit over the first of the month.
Can I ask, so you have hired you've offered 2 people positions. Is that any of those names that came from the HR department down, or did you find those?
I found them.
You found them both, so you now have 2 people that are gonna be coming on board. Well, that's excellent, because
Yes.
part of this whole process is to get people hired in your office. So I'm glad to hear that that has been accomplished.
And that's the
Because-
reason why we are
Well, that'll,
extending ourselves. We want them to help us,
because,
more so, if you don't mind for
Go
a
ahead,
second,
finish.
more so as we begin to transition over to, and I can only tell you NeoGov's the name, but I'm not sure I don't know anything about the product, but that in itself will get us exactly where I think you're talking about
Yeah.
now. You know?
So, yeah,
And I envision also, I would hope, see what you think about this. I would hope that when we're talking about not having to do payroll, substantially, I think, ask me if I'm wrong, that will go back to the departments. The departments will actually do. The reason why is because you're gonna have, like, I'm gonna call it electronic for lack of a better word, but you're gonna have electronic recording you know what I'm saying? And from there, it's kind of hard to screw up electronic
Yeah, if it's
system.
programmed well,
Yes.
that should do the work. Now, I would like to ask a question, President Hawkins. You mentioned that, you know, McDaniel does the bulk of the work or whatever, however you described it, and then it comes back. See, that's where I think it's gonna get, that's gonna take too much time. I mean, I mean, if they have to
Actually,
check everything again, then they're,
How much
you know,
time do you
it's
think?
just
But he's,
That will take
he's
them.
legally responsible.
correct,
So
but I
they
mean,
have to have some sort of oversight for.
maybe once we know that the software is working correctly and it's computing correctly, then it's not, he doesn't have to spend a ton of time,
That's correct.
you
Be
know.
less time all the time.
Yes, correct, to where we know that it's working well, it's computing everybody's deductions correctly and paying people correct, then he wouldn't have to spend time, otherwise you're gonna be going backwards if he's reviewing everything to the nth detail.
Yeah.
So, but when I look at this sheet here, I'm just like confused, I mean, this has got handwriting and all, and this is just mistake, but this can be mistakes right here, all this handwriting and computing by,
Yeah, well,
Apple
the way it
calculators,
came,
whatever.
it wasn't correct, so you can
Yeah.
see, there had to be, oversight on it.
So Terry, I can't help myself but get into the weeds because that's where my
Yeah.
brain works. So would you say, because this is going to carry over to software if we go to software, would you say the mistakes that show up on this are a result of people filling out their time cards incorrectly or people transferring it to the culmination sheet incorrectly? Or is it both?
It could be both.
Okay.
You could
So-
have a department where, I mean, we're talking about the two largest divisions we have are police and fire.
So I guess that's my question for Renee then. Would you be getting the time cards and have to put it together and know when people have filled those, how would you know if people fill those out wrong? Or is she getting this and gonna have to decipher?
I'm not sure.
Yeah, I mean, our initial thought is we're gonna take a laptop to the police station and to the fire station and actually do their payroll while we're Okay. sitting there so that we can talk to their department head and make sure we're interpreting it correctly. Okay. Because I think that's where. And I think, just because I've done it, there's the, Bruce worked 40 hours and makes $26.50 an hour payroll side calculation, and then there's all that stuff that happens after. So I'm assuming you're doing the calculation and then all the stuff after, the multiple retirement systems, the municipality taxes goes there.
And I think you answered a big question for me because I didn't know what procedure they were going to be using, and it really is the best way to do it. Just
So-
sit right there in the department.
And Terry,
It's all right
do you
there.
believe her sitting there, that'll catch the mistakes?
Well, yeah, because the time cards are gonna be right there. The
Okay.
time- anytime, and Mel, you touched on it again, I'm gonna touch on it for you again as well. Every time you take, the numbers from one piece of a document over into another document, there you go. You've got all those possibilities, and yep, they do happen. They
Okay.
do happen. So, yeah, I think what Renee's talking about here, at each of the departments, just drop right in. There's the time. Every department, every department has a time card for somebody. So,
I just hope, I want everybody to have an understanding that her calculating what they're due doesn't complete payroll. I mean, that's not the, I didn't believe, my understanding was not they were gonna do everything. There'd have been no way, I don't know how they would have ever done that.
Yeah, the difficulty is we don't have access to the bank account.
Right.
So we can't do that final step. We don't know that process.
Yeah.
And the pension
Okay.
reporting, I'm sure, is very detailed and.
yeah,
Okay.
we just finished it today.
Okay.
So,
Well, nothing I think would make all of us would be the happiest people in Mount Vernon if we found out Friday that you all met this week and it all is processing. I mean, that would be, that's exactly what we want, we authorized. And I don't like to get into departments, into the weeds with to use your term. I think, it's not our role to get into your business. But, so I'm going, however, having said that, and forgive me for asking, but you said you're going to meet this week, have appointments been made, and there's a schedule, or is that yet to come?
Just happened.
No, from what I understand, we have offered that we have 3 days this week that we can do anything that we can to help these folks. Now, whether that be, do you want to take some time cards as a dummy
Yeah,
payroll
so-
type?
Can I ask, before this moment and tonight, did you receive a request from the auditor's office to meet this week?
We asked if we could meet this week.
This
We
week.
took copies of timesheets from last week and asked if we could go review them and meet with them, and that's
Okay.
scheduled for Wednesday.
Because I don't want to lose track, and I think the auditor and everybody here gets it, is we're here tonight because council felt that there was delays. I can't think of the hoity-toity word to say. I probably couldn't say it. But we're here because of delays of getting this done, and it's been a month now. And I know that's one of the things that bothered me, because keep in mind, and I'm very happy to hear that you've hired staff, Terry. Wonderful. Because council has been pushing for you to get staff for 6 months. I've said it here myself at public meetings and privately. I have personally offered to be an advocate for your office at least 4 times. We even asked you in our budget process, hey, don't you need help? Because you didn't voluntarily say, hey, I need some people too. So council's been very forthcoming of getting you help, and we want that to fix this. Because we're here because of city employees' payroll being messed up and all of the various withholdings that go along with that. We've got these 2 grievances that need to be resolved, and part of the fix is fixing what we're doing. That's why we voted for this. And then on top of it, all of this lays us out. We could have the U.S. Department of Labor investigate the city, particularly if it deals with overtime issues. So we want this fixed. We want it fixed, and like Bruce said, a solution. And as long as we've got a solution going forward, I think that satisfies council. But we're here today because we felt that we weren't getting the solution we thought we all agreed to moving. So it sounds to me, and maybe I'm wrong, does it sound that we're moving forward, that the auditor's office is going to cooperate with McDaniel's and the mayor's office? I mean, because you're an elected official. I don't know all the legal ramifications or what can even be done about it because it's your office. But we've got to get moving and getting this fixed because, like you said, she has a limited time of getting things done also. And it's not just the union employees from where their pays may not be correct, from my understanding. We've got to get all this fixed. And we have to work together for the community. It doesn't matter whether we like each other, whether we think we don't communicate in the right style. We owe people good government, and we owe people to get things done and fixed. So for you to get your office up and running to 4, that is why we've gone through this whole process of what we're going through. So I'm very happy to hear you're hiring 2 people, but I think we just need to make sure we see continued improvement with working to get this solution that we all came up with and we passed a month ago. That's pretty much what I had to say, but there's a lot of issues here, and if you look through the folders here that we have, they're the issues that I just cited, but in more detailed form. Okay, and I want, like everybody, I want it fixed, but we need to get moving and get it fixed. And I think you understand that. I'm disappointed that we had to get here today to get that.
Well, it sounds like we have a program, a process moving forward with payroll now. We're working together, them staff coming in. When I called this meeting to order, we talked about payroll, but we also talked about entering a contract for NeoGov suite of programs. Where are we with that?
Yes.
I mean, that's the other part of the special
Yeah,
meeting.
you're right. You're correct.
So in order to make sure that we're moving things along, because as we discussed in the executive session, as Terry and I and the mayor and pretty much anybody that's had any sort of hand in it, we've all discussed that Civica or Authority Payroll is an antiquated product that we should be moving away from. NeoGov, we have signed a contract as soon as council agreed on the 624. On 625, we signed a contract with NeoGov and with McDaniel. We'll be cutting the PO this week, so look for that. So With that suite of products comes, there's a handful of those. It's a full HRIS system, but included in that is a payroll portal that is both external and internal. Right now, Authority Payroll, which we use, is only an internal facing product. So only the people that get in, review those changes, make those changes, they are the only ones that can see what happens within that. The NeoGov payroll portal is external, or it's forward facing. So if you're an employee, you can get in and you can see like live active changes to your accounts. You can see as the deductions are taken out. You have a more hands-on, feel to what's happening on your paycheck. Which a lot of times when we talk about instances, and if you look through here, I've included all the Clemens Nelson payroll reviews in this packet, in this folder here. I've included some of those Clemens Nelson payroll reviews. We had a particular police officer that had went almost an entire calendar year and didn't have health care withheld from his paycheck. Case could be made, he should have caught that. Agreed. But it's one of those things that if you're not, paying a close attention to your check stub, and I mean, I have been 23 before, so some more recent than others, Rob. So if you don't pay attention to that, you're obviously not seeing that come out. But at that payroll portal, if you're online, if you can see that, you can catch those things, so then it doesn't become this kind of a nightmare scenario, right? That's the benefit of moving over from that NeoGov product, or from the Civica product to that NeoGov product. Additionally to what Mel was talking about, and we have had this conversation just this last week with Terry, is this product also provides a scheduler or a time management system where they can go in, and our employees, and that is not just the safety forces, as also includes the service forces. Right now, the way the system is set up is our police and fire use a system called a LAD Tech. I believe fire uses it a little bit more than police does, but nevertheless, they're able to go in there and they're able to bid shifts. They're able to calculate their shifts in there. So that allows them to save more time. It's a lot more of a complex system since they have, multiple different shifts, and there's a whole lot to, and I think you'll all agree, and Terry can definitely back me up, that it is a complicated system. There's no one that's denying that in any way. It's a matter of the volume and the people that can handle it. And if things start slipping through the cracks, that's when we have to know that the responsible thing to do is to address it immediately. So if we come in and we find a more modern system that can get all those algorithms in there, that we can build that in, that way people on the ground aren't, with pen and paper trying to go, oh God, where's the problem even occurring? So,
Give me a time frame for when this is gonna kick in.
so we have already told them, out of the 8 products that they are implementing, and that's what council has approved, is that full HRIS suite. The 2 products that we are wanting to escalate is the payroll portal and that scheduler. They've got a fancy NeoGov name for it, but and we want that done within the next month. It takes a long time to get that up, and we have been open and honest with everybody that will be working with that. We're mostly going to have to train our administrative support staff to do that. And I want to get up here and defend them too. I don't, and I'm sure that's not Terry's intention to come in and say that they're just terrible at their jobs and they can't properly, submit payroll. It is an antiquated system. It's paper and pen. Several of them use a LAD Tech in safety forces, in service forces. They use, some of them use paper and pen there. They have Excel docs or Google Docs, and then they transpose it onto that paper and pen time card. And then it comes to the auditor's office, and as Terry has explained to us before, they don't want to manipulate the department time card. So then they transpose it onto a different time card, and then it gets put into, and that's where the cutesy Patty Post-it thing comes from. They'll put Post-it notes on the time cards to, encourage edits or whatnot. And then Patty will then transpose it into the authority payroll system. So Mel, you're talking about 3 to 4 opportunities for human error. We are people, y'all. Like, it's gonna happen. You're gonna mess it up. But when you modernize something and you build the algorithm correctly, and that's really what we're gonna focus on first, is making sure that, and that's where we're gonna need Terry's help, because as Bruce has mentioned, he's the one on the chopping block when Keith Faber starts, whipping the handcuffs around. Like, we have to make sure that, heard that? Yeah. So, I ain't going down for him. But, so we have to make sure that all those things are reportable back to the state. When we found these inconsistencies, we were quick to start having these conversations. We did not ignore them. We wanted to make sure because, like Mike said, this could go back too far, and we don't want it to go back too far. So when the grievances came in, we wanted to be able to say, we're looking into it, we're making the necessary changes. You can trust as an employee and as a citizen of Mount Vernon that this is what happens when your government sees an issue, it responds, and it does it responsibly and responsibly. So that's what we did. So to answer, long-winded answer your question, there's a lot of people in our different departments that are doing it differently based on the needs of their departments. We are trying to come in with the NeoGov suite and create something that they can all do uniformly. That way, if anybody moves from department to department, I mean, we've had, Lindsay was in the Safety Service Director's office. Now she's over at Fire. If we would have had the NeoGov system at that point, she would have gone from NeoGov to NeoGov. The same way with Chris when she worked in Terry's office moving over to PD, NeoGov to NeoGov. Maureen, the Safety Service Administrator now, went from the water plant, NeoGov to NeoGov. That's the uniformity. Everybody speaks the same language. It's very helpful. And then that same report will be able to be triggered down to the auditor's office. So if for any reason an employee or an administrator needs to go talk to the auditor's office, it'll be generated on the same report. And we can all be speaking from the same, singing from the same sheet of music, if you will. And I think that is important for, compliance. That's important for understanding. That's important for us all to right this ship.
I also want to further defend our administrative assistants because they work with a series, and Terry comes and trains them, and they have to then take notes of their meetings with Terry. We don't have a set of instructions on how to do payroll that people could refer back to. That's another thing we're going to be doing with NeoGov,
Right.
is providing all of the people who are doing the input work with good instructions that they can refer back to and then pass on when or if they leave that department.
Yes.
We don't have that right now. And so part of it is with the received wisdom, accidents or changes happen. And so our administrative assistants do a significantly good job with everything that is arrayed against them.
Okay, perhaps I misunderstood. I thought employees would be putting their own time in,
Well,
that the administrative assistants would
Yeah,
not.
so depending on how the department set it up. So in a lot of instances, I even look to our services forces in Public Works. So they have no access to a standard computer. Like even if we wanted to have them all, clock in at a certain time, we'd have to set up a computer that they can all come in and clock in. They don't have that. So, and then we've talked about, there are a lot of options when it comes to, setting up NeoGov has an app that they can put on their personal phone and clock in, and you can geofence where they can clock in, and different things. There are a multitude of options when it comes to that will basically be rolled out department by department based on need. So right now, yes, that's an option. If some department decides, no, we'd rather have it this way, well, then we'll talk about it that way. Basically, regardless, they will have that front-facing portal that they'll be able to say, I was officer on charge on this day, I should have had that pay bump. And I think Terry can attest, I'm making this number up, but I'd say about 90% of the problem that we have with like PD or any sort of inconsistency there is there was a shift change or somebody was off a day and I, per the contract, I became the officer in charge or this was a holiday pay or,
So you said set up several times. Who is going to be taking and setting it up? Because there's a ton of setup.
Right.
Who does the setup?
So since it is an HR product, an HRIS system, both Denise and Amberly are going to be tasked with implementing the product throughout the city. However, part of that big bill with NeoGov was an implementation cost. So when you pay that implementation cost, like we've done with Civic Plus when it comes to our website, Colby Torres is our implementation specialist. She's the chief implementation officer for our product. So every time that we have, for the website even, when we have an art question and, we're doing, color palettes and different things, they bring in somebody else from their team to talk about that specific product. So what we'll likely do with NeoGov, we've already met with Gary Carey, which is, we like fun names like that around here, right? So we've met with Gary Carey and Michael, can't think of his last name, but it didn't rhyme, that's the problem. So Gary and Michael are going to be kind of like the chief NeoGov representatives for us. We're going to bring an implementation specialist on. We have her name, and I just can't think of it right now. We just got it today. And I imagine, as I've been through these kind of implementations before, every time that we come to a new product, there will be one or two people. There's going to be this person that's kind of our main implementation specialist. And then as a new product comes, so like the payroll portal, you'll have one or two new people show up and kind of explain it to everybody that's going to have a hand in it. And then as it hands off to the HR portion, there will be a couple other people show up. NeoGov's a very big company, so they're going to be able, they've done this before.
At this point, we're kind of getting into the weeds. And
Well, you asked.
The three things this meeting was for, was for discuss payroll and a contract with Renee, to transfer the funds, and to do NeoGov. Seems like we've covered those things. And how you're doing all those little things, not my job.
Sure.
That's your job. And so I appreciate that. Is there anything else council has? We discussed those three things. Any other questions you have before we adjourn?
I want to say that Terry says all bills are paid. And if someone tells you a bill has not been paid, get the bill and provide it to Terry. Because he can't pay something he doesn't know that he hasn't got.
So as of today, all of our bills are paid by the city.
That is correct,
Have all
right,
city-
Terry?
Have all city employees also being reimbursed for personal expenses?
Terry, is that right?
Okay. That's what I was afraid of.
Well, I didn't want to poke that gun too high.
Yeah.
Your question again, sir.
All bills
All
are
bills
paid.
are paid, including any and all city employees that have used their personal expenses to pick up bills.
As of last Friday, we ran the check run.
As of last Friday, all those are paid. Okay.
So if anybody says there's,
anything leering around in a department.
tell them to
That's on them.
provide it.
As if they have properly sent what they needed to send to you to pay, I understand that.
Yep.
I just don't wanna have something that was properly sent to the auditor's office not paid.
Yep.
If it's been properly sent, it's all paid.
Paid.
Okay.
And,
Good.
and if it has not been
We-
properly sent, have you gone and returned it to the department with what information they need to provide?
Yep.
Okay.
Anything else, council?
I would just have to say is I trust that that's the case. And I am disappointed that we had to have this meeting, but I would like
It was
to.
a good meeting.
Okay, yeah, I would like to feel confident that everybody's gonna work together to solve this problem for the citizens of Mount Vernon. Because I think it would be really bad form to have to call another special council meeting to discuss issues of offices working together.
It's not gonna be a problem.
Okay.
At least in my area, not gonna be a problem.
Okay.
I'm tired, folks.
On this issue, we all are.
I call for adjournment.
So moved.
Second.
They moved in second. All in favor, say aye.
Aye.
Opposed, nay. We are adjourned. Thank you, Renee. Thank you, Terry. Thank you, Tanner, for getting this together.
Thank you,
Needed to
Janet.
happen.